Do.
Hello and welcome back to Down the Slope. I'm hosting again, but we do have a full house. I am joined by Harry, Liam, and Craig. Harry, how you doing, my man? Return safe,
Um,
mainland Europe.
yeah, I'd say I'm better than last week. I know we weren't exactly overly impressive yesterday, but I was a bit more distraught last week than I was now. So overall, it's bloody roasting in mainland Europe, and by mainland Europe, I mean London. It's like 34 degrees or something today, and I'm not built for it, lads.
I don't know. We're not. Do you know what? I just seen Liam's face melt there as we started talking about the weather again. So I'm not even going to get into just how mental it's been up here today. Liam, how are you doing, my friend? No weather chat.
I'm doing good. I'm doing good. Doing good. Good weekend. Just I mean, ready to get stuck in again. Stuck
Hmm.
in about the Hibs,
Craig, a
which
massive
feels like
okay.
it's a bit like last season, to be honest, isn't it? It's already there's patterns that are appearing that feel a lot like last season.
I know.
So 2023.
Craig, I really, really care about how you're doing, right? But just talk to me straight away. Were your initial thoughts coming out of the ground yesterday? And just a wee summary before we dive in too much.
Initial thoughts coming out the ground, I was relieved to get away 2-0, to be honest. That was where my head was at with that one, to be fair. Uh, Slightly happy with the second half performance, but it's overall, probably just happy to get away 2-0. That would be my main thoughts
Yeah.
after the game.
Well, look, we have had an abundance of different talking points, and I have tried my best to put them all together into what would be five categories, but really it's four categories, right? And I'm going to tell you what they are. So it's individual performances and thoughts on the Celtic game, the midfield as a collective, the manager, and then just generally squad and transfers, and maybe more what we need to see over the next what is it, 2.5 weeks now, two and a half, just under 3 weeks, that we've got left of the transfer window. So I suppose we'll start with individual performances in the Celtic game as it happened just yesterday, and we'll go back to the starting 11. Two changes from last week, Harry. Dylan Levitt and now is it? It's not Kukarevic anymore, is it? It's something else that I can't say. They've changed
Kuharovic, is that what they're
Kuharovic.
saying?
Kuharovic.
I think so.
Was it Barry Wilkins that said it though?
Well, it's what's on his shirt.
Uh,
Hmm.
right, okay.
There's obviously some political some side to that, but yeah, two changes. Harry Michaela and Levitt came in. Fair to say, a lot of surprise, especially around Dylan Levitt's inclusion.
Yeah, like as I said last week, I want to see Dylan Levitt used. But I don't really want to see Dylan Levitt abused, which I think starting him yesterday kind of opened him up to. As I've said several times, I think there's definitely a technical player in Dylan Levitt, but the type of performance we need yesterday is a lot of energy across the whole team, and I just don't think that energy slash box to box slash pressing is any of the words that you would think of when you say Dylan Levitt. So I didn't really understand it. Personally, I think if you're starting Kukarevic, you have to have some form of outlet there sorry, some outlet up there with him. Because a few of the times I actually thought he won a couple of headers and there was just nobody within 10 yards of him to do anything with it. So for me, I know it sounds daft, but I'd have rather started Levitt and, started Vente and Big Mick. I'm going to call him Big Mick from now on then. Because for me, like we saw last year, Vente, even though it frustrated us at times, he Harry players down until he gets subbed at the 60th minute because he's tired himself out too much. But at least it would give us something going forward. I just think the main problem for me yesterday, and it's the same as the St. Mirren game, we had no midfield. Like the midfielders didn't play well, but there was just no connection between the defence and midfield or midfield and attack. And for me, that's the massive glaring issue that I'm sure we're going to talk about more throughout
Yeah.
the
Liam, I sort of said there that another one of the big categories was the manager, and a lot of people were questioning that sort of starting 11 formation or just the players that made up the starting 11. Were you equally as surprised as Harry to see Levitt come in, and were you comfortable with other change, or would you like us to see us go in a total different direction?
And I wasn't surprised that he made changes based on how poor the midfield was against St Mirren, but I was surprised that Levitt was the guy to come in. I think as a sort of layman supporter who doesn't know a huge amount about like sort of tactical side of the game, I would have thought a game against Celtic would be you'd bring in a more combative, more tenacious player, rather than take one out to bring in a more, you know, sweet, sort of easy on the eye midfielder. But I think that's, I mean, to be honest, it's an indictment of where the recruitment's at. We've got 8 first-team central midfielders at the club, and they felt like the best option was to bring Dylan Levitt in for Nathan Mariah Welsh. I mean, how you can't get a combination of 3 against Celtic that works from the 8 midfielders, I really don't know. And you saw it yesterday because Campbell and Newell were booked so early in the game that effectively they became even more ineffective as a result of those bookings. So I think it's not the change I would have made, and I wouldn't defend it. I think it's a mistake from Gray, but how many managers have we seen now try and switch between 2s and 3s of those combinations of players and they can't get it to work?
Yeah. But just before I get your thoughts on the same stuff, Craig, I probably say thank you for all the talking points that come in. I won't be shouting people out by name because I did not have the time. Boy, is Hibs Twitter a busy place when Hibs get beat. If only it was that busy when Hibs win. But yeah, look, Craig, without wanting to just repeat what the guys have said, if it wasn't Dylan Levitt, what would you have liked to have seen? Liam's talked about more, maybe a more robust midfield there. Like, what would you have expected to see?
I definitely would have had Nathan Mariah Welsh in there, 100%. I feel like we could have used his energy and his steel to sort of close down those gaps that were. It's easy to say in hindsight when you're watching a game when the game's already started. Oh, we should have done this and we should have done that. But I think, to be fair, we all did highlight before the game when we seen the lineup that we were a wee bit concerned with the midfield.
Hmm.
And I think had we had somebody with his energy in there to close these gaps down that were so blaringly obvious, I think that maybe would have helped a wee bit. But I just think at the moment the sort of balance on our side, particularly the midfield, just isn't good enough.
Yeah.
And I don't know exactly what we need to do to fix that. I suppose that's up to the guys that know what they're doing and get paid to do it. But uh, I would hazard a guess that a 6 would help that.
Yeah, look, it's not often that you wouldn't be bypassing anything at all in the game to go to the first goal of the game, but we did get off to the sort of worst possible start 3 minutes in. And this is probably one that potentially falls more on the manager. Like I'm guessing that that's early in the game. We've got such a high line, and it sort of exposes us, against a player that ultimately will expose a high line and Kyogo. And obviously, he doesn't directly score the goal, but it's just one phase of play later. Is just how much of a horror start is that, Craig? Check, like the best team in the country, 3 minutes in. You know what I mean? Like
It's a
it's
disaster. It just lets them settle right into the game, gives them confidence, and that's opposite what you need against Celtic. You can't afford to let them settle into the game.
Is
Until
it
it,
too
I believe,
aggressive? Like with the high line, and David Gray spoke about Levitt being in so that we could keep the ball, and like
yeah,
Jenky was thinking about obviously we concede after 3 minutes, so it changes. But do you think we came into the game almost trying to be, put a team out there that was too attacking? I think one of you guys maybe even said in the group chat it was quite an attacking lineup on the face of it. I can't remember who it
yeah,
was.
I would say we were definitely too attacking. I wouldn't say we were too aggressive. Maybe aggressive in an attacking sense, maybe too
Aye, sorry,
aggressive.
yeah, not in physical.
Yeah, because for me, if we were to be aggressive, that would involve getting stuck in. And I just don't think we did enough of that. I don't think we were close enough to runners. I think we let runners run off us far too easily. There's
Mhm.
way too many guys. I think I seen Alistair Johnston down that right hand side overlapping about fucking 40 times in the first half, which was a disaster.
Yeah.
Uh, but we were just giving them far too much time, far too much space, and then when you let them settle and let them have that confidence on the ball early on, you're asking for trouble. And I think we were quite fortunate in the first half to get away with what we did.
Aye, Harry, again, like with that start to the game, like were you surprised? I mean, ultimately we had the two centre halves on the halfway line. With 50 yards in behind them, and it was simply just a ball over the top. There was no skill to it, and we sort of drop off and let the shot in. But for the second week in a row, it feels like that second phase of defending is what's exposed us there. Is it? like
I mean,
disaster.
the thing is, it's 0-0 after 2 minutes. Like 3 points are up for grabs, and we're chasing the game. Like I don't blame the defenders for being on the halfway line when there's 90 minutes left in a football match, even though they've not got the pace. I was clearly being sarcastic, just to confirm. I thought it was mental. I don't understand why we're playing a very high line against a Celtic side that are significantly better than us. Going into games against Celtic, like there's obviously we always want to compete, but I just want it to be difficult for them to get a result. And for me, Celtic, although they were leagues ahead of us, I don't think they had to be particularly good. I think the goals that we gifted them and a lot of the chances that we gifted them happened because we weren't defending or doing the fundamentals. I think the first goal just kind of typified the problems that we've seen in the first two games so far. Yeah, like in the group chat yesterday, as we were saying, like we literally had about 4 or 5 players that we could have pinned the goal on. So as a collective, we're just not setting up well. And I think the main thing again is just like there's no cohesion throughout the team. Like they had a throw in and 2 passes later, they're in on goal. It's just mental. It's not the way that a team should be playing. It's not the way that after a full pre-season a team should be looking. I'm not going to point all the fingers at Gray because it's a whole coaching staff and it's the team need to do their jobs better. But it's worrying. It's worrying for me. Yeah, not good.
Liam, we're not. We don't want to. We're not going to run for the listener's sake. We're not going to run through every single play-by-play of the game. But you mentioned
Thank
there,
fuck.
and but you did mention. I think it was yourself anyway. Around the two bookings that the two sort of central midfielders got early on, and look, the midfield's going to be a recurring theme of tonight's episode, as people can see from the title. But I mean, is there any excuse for Campbell or Newell? Is it harsh that they've got the bookings, or do you think they're both bookings and as individual players they just need to do better?
I haven't seen them back, to be honest, mate. I haven't seen them back, and so I don't really want to opine on whether or not they were fair or
Yeah,
unfair. I tend not to. It's not a highlight. It's not a big moment in the game. I don't think. I think it just obviously had an impact over the course of the 90 minutes. The impact's there for all to see. I thought it was kind of odd that we didn't really change it in that area of the park as well, given the two of them were on the book. And like I thought, then you'd bring Mariah Welsh on. Having said that, to kind of contradict what I said earlier on a wee bit, um, I think it was right that Mariah Welsh was dropped because his performance against St Mirren was unacceptable. There has to be consequences when you turn in that poor performance. You lose your place in the team because there needs to be a certain standard at this club that's set that we don't accept, underperformance, particularly when it's as severe as that. And he came on the sort of dying embers of the game, really.
right.
Yeah, to Ben, there's nothing. So I can kind of understand it, but I think the fact of the matter is, I just keep coming back to the quality's not there. I mean, I would expect a David Gray midfield to be tenacious. That would be the first word I would expect them to be. We weren't tenacious at all, really, to be honest. Other than probably one tackle from Joe Newell in the first half, where
Yeah, right
you remember
after.
when he absolutely flattened the boy. I can't remember who it was, but other than that, there was no real tenacity. In fact, probably our most tenacious midfielder at the club, I'd probably argue is Jake Doyle Hayes, who's the forgotten man, not been seen. We are missing that. We really are missing that. It's a really soft. You look at that first team centre midfielders, it's a pretty soft group.
I think like it's a bit of a vicious circle that you can talk about that we're in just now. Like players should do better, manager should do better, but manager is only able to use players that we've got that appear to not be good enough. Therefore, it's on the recruitment and those above. You know what I mean? Like it is that. Do you know what I mean? Like it is just like
Yeah.
that never-ending loop that ultimately you're probably not going to get out of until you're out of the transfer window. Players have moved on, players have come in, and then ultimately you know exactly what you've got at least until January. And then at that point, obviously, it is on the manager to get something out of them just now as well. I'm not saying that, but whatever the team is on the first of, I was going to say on the 1st of September, but whatever the squad we have going to Kilmarnock is the squad we've got till January. And it's like at that point, maybe that's where the circle breaks and the more focus comes onto the management and the actual game by game performance. I don't know, like it just feels to me like you've mentioned 8 central midfielders and we can't pick a balance of 3 that works. And for me, just to go back to the chat, I felt like we probably should have went and as with a back 5. I felt like Rocky should have came in or Obita or Miller. The difficulty is, I think, had Nicky Cadden been available, that you maybe would have been able to do that. But I still felt you probably could have just played Rocky as as the right centre back with Miller at the side of him, and and just shift the other two along. And I agree with Mariah Welsh was poor against St Mirren, but also the context of it, I would say that out with actually, I would probably even say over Jake Doherty's. I think he is the one player. He would always almost be my first name on the team sheet at the weekend because I think he's the midfielder that can cover the most ground, will get stuck in, and will give you the energy to, as well as, when we do get on the ball, he might be able to carry the ball 20, 30 yards that probably the other midfielders won't do. They'll look to stop and pass it and move that way. So it was very disappointing. Harry, the disappointment was then compounded with a second goal. I've had a couple of comments come in around the goalkeeper on this one. Do you feel like he should have done better on it personally? I think it's harsh, and look, it's a great strike from McGregor. But there's obviously a lot of mistakes in there before the ball gets to Callum McGregor.
All right, so Callum McGregor, probably the best midfielder in Scotland, is literally being given 10 yards of space to take a 5-yard touch to then run and get a full pelt shot off across the keeper, pick his spot in the goal without any pressure at all, and you're blaming it on the keeper. You've
No,
literally
I
got
don't think
six.
I think it's just people
No,
questioning.
no, no. Listen. You've got 6 players that can put any form of pressure on him, so he can't make a perfect connection with that. That's as well being a free kick. That is honestly fucking. If you've said that that's on Bursick, you're a fucking idiot. There's nothing else to say to it. I'm not just saying it because I think Bursick's been all right so far, but that is just utterly mental to me. Like it's like, see, the thing is, there's so many things to be frustrated at. And I think that when we're frustrated, we'll look for additional things to be frustrated at, and we'll just look to throw more and more people under the bus. Let's just accept that the outfield players there, it was completely unacceptable. 3 players got caught going out wide for no reason at all. That led to, as I said, best midfielder in Scotland having that much space to. He could have done a few keepy uppies if he wanted to before he smacked it. It was ridiculous how much space he was given at the edge of the box. Like, it was complete disaster. And yeah, that for me though, that I don't think is on the manager. I think that's on individuals. Like, it's again just simple fundamentals. Why have we got 2 people marking nobody on the box? Why have we got 3 people on the wing not doing anything? Like,
There was
people just
nobody
need to
marking nobody.
understand
The
their
only
roles.
player that was free in the box was Campbell, who was standing
Campbell.
to Kyogo. Because
Uh,
if I'm not, I don't,
Yeah,
maybe
no,
I'm
you're
defending him. If he steps up, then we are literally left
uh,
4v4 spread across the ball. It's the issue for
uh,
me, and I don't want to be too harsh. I think Kukurevich lets McGregor go and gets drawn into the ball. The other 3 don't flat, they don't cover themselves in glory either. But Kukurevich doesn't need to. Sorry, I'm saying his name wrong again, but he doesn't need to go to the ball. And throughout the first half, I actually said, I was like, why the fuck is it him that's having to sit on McGregor all the time? But it was clearly the job he was given. We've seen Venti do it against him last year to the same player, and he has went to the ball and left McGregor open. And for me, that's where that one's fell down personally.
yeah. I mean, I just I'm not really into trying to blame individual players or trying to pinpoint blame when there's about 4 or 5 people at fault for
Aye,
goals that
of
we
course.
concede. To be honest, I find that quite. It just looks like you've got an agenda when you try and single out individuals. Like I saw someone absolutely Kieran Campbell on Twitter earlier, which I thought was a fucking mental take. And given there was 4 players that were closer to the ball than he was, I we've kind of got this culture within the fan base where we just need someone or some people to blame. I think when actually, to be honest, again, the collective wasn't good enough. Like the entire first half performance, there wasn't really anyone that stood out for me from front to back. We didn't give Celtic enough to worry about or think about in an attacking sense either. We didn't really set a press and go after them when they had the ball in their own area. It was just, do you know what it was? It was just insipid. That's what it was. It was just an entirely insipid performance.
Yeah, but I mean, you mentioned the first half there, Liam. Do you think it was an improvement in the second? Look, obviously, the score remains the same, but is it an improvement in the second half? Is that down to Hibs? Is that down to Celtic? Like, what is your take on the second half performance?
It was an improvement, but I mean, we're talking about a very, very low bar that's been set. We're not. It's not like a marked improvement. Like, and I don't know if you mind the game under Jack Ross where we were 3-0 down against him at half time, and then he brought Campbell on and for the second half, and I think it ended up finishing 3-0. Do you remember that, or was it maybe
Oh,
3-1?
Chris, no, like,
Newell missed a sitter when he got 3 on goal. It was a wee bit like
yeah,
that in the respect that the game was kind of over, so it's really hard to make any serious judgment about whether or not you've improved or they've just taken their foot off the gas. Because to be honest, if you look at the second half in isolation, the only thing that I thought really was a positive was the introduction of Kieran Bowie, who actually roughed a few defenders up and got at them, because Kukurevich was just non-existent, to be honest. His movement off the ball was just non-existent. His ability to get up in the air, non-existent. I mean, he's a guy who's obviously needing games and he's needing minutes to get back to sharpness, but this comes back to the point we were trying to make last week. They just left it far too late for these guys to have an impact this side of September, to be honest. They're not going to be ready to make that kind of impact. So you're essentially just giving away the first five games of the season.
Yeah, again, I know we're talking on in the second half, but that was the case in the first half. An unfit striker, a player playing in number 10 that it's not a criticism with Dylan Levitt, he can't really cover the ground. And with the two midfielders behind him from the 10th minute on, both being on a booking, they were going to, I mean, Celtic can do it at the best of times and cut through teams, but our spine was effectively rendered useless at that point. Craig, look, there's been loads come in about individual performances, a lot of it negative, but the one standout in terms of positive was Kieran Bowie's cameo. Is it Bowie or Bowie? Sorry, I don't know if anyone's had that.
Bowie.
Bowie. Kieran Bowie's confirmation, that's the confirmation of his name. His cameo coming off the part. Oh my God. How was he? How did he play? That's what I'm trying to say.
He was brilliant coming off the bench. As I think you were going for there.
Thank you.
No, I was impressed. I was. It's a difficult game to do anything and really into when the whole team is so drastically underperformed. Well, maybe not drastically at that point, but the rest of the team is underperforming. It's difficult to come on and make an impact on your own, basically. But he just about managed it, to be fair. He does Carter Vickers down the line. I actually said that to our season ticket friends that we sit next to. I said, you won't see many people get the better of Carter Vickers in that manner. So that on as a sign alone of things to come fills me with optimism with him, because that's exactly what he needs to do in this league. He needs to get stuck in, get his elbows up, not be afraid of physical contact, all that jazz. So I was pleased with how he looked. Yeah, and great shot for angle as well. Unlucky.
Yeah. We do very much appreciate everyone that's tuned in live and commenting on YouTube. So I'm going to take a quick summary before we move on to a little bit of a different tangent, or at least get your thoughts, Harry, on us moving forward. But Akshash, sorry if I've said that hummingly bad.
I believe that's
Ake.
Oh,
That's
Ake, sorry, Ake. The midfield
did say it hummingly bad
Celtic
as well,
would
though.
be, would be more suited to playing St Mirren in the midfield against St Mirren, would have been more useful against Celtic. Yeah, that's hard to disagree with. Nico, the midfield with numerous combinations has tried, tested and failed. Gray must demand at least two midfielders before the window closes. Hopefully McCowan and a destroyer type. Keane, Rocky and JDH prop. This is brilliant. Also Keane, Sunday's game is now a pretty big test for David Gray, in my opinion. He needs to learn from the mistakes with a high line in the midfield. And also Sky are reporting that Senior Hoylett is out until September. That's is equally predictable and depressing. And Mike Murphy, as I speak, trying to pick some positive out of it. I thought O'Hura had a decent game. Interested if you agree. Look, Harry, Kieran Bowie, or Bowie, sorry, and O'Hura, they both
Ohura? Who the fuck is Ohura, mate?
That's what I was
I
laughing
said it's
at.
O'Hara.
Ohura. Mate, Ohura. Where are you getting who from?
Because
Oh,
there's no
secondly-
H. There's no W. There's no W, aye.
All right, are we pretending that Dora the Explorer is Irish but with a H instead of a D? Is that what we're talking about?
That's the worst
And
one yet.
shut up, Inverness.
All right. So Bowie, whatever you want to say. He seems like a big bastard. I like that. The only concern I have with him is I just don't think he's necessarily scored barrel loads of goals. I just don't think that's the type of striker that he's been so far in his career.
He's not a striker though. He's a right winger. He's a right winger, so I wouldn't expect barrel loads of numbers for a right winger, to be honest. He's only 21 as well.
I'm allowed to say what I was going to say, or am I just going to be shot before I can give the context?
No, just want you to get things right. That's all.
Oh mate, well we've been here we found out 4 years coming up, and I've not been right yet. So let's just give up on that dream. But yeah, no, for me, I think there's a lot of excitement around him and the impact it'll have on the team. I think a lot of people just because if I'm being brought on as a striker and kind of I don't really know too much about him. I know it was with Northampton, but with the way that we're playing at the moment, I'm just concerned that he's not going to be able to have the positive impact. Like I think he'll perform well, but it's just where the players around him can get in a position to take advantage of that that concerns me at the moment. So he looked great, and I just want to make sure that we utilize him to the best of his ability, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
And Ohura, no Ohora, I think he was fine. I don't think he had an overly good game. If you can see two goals, it's difficult to compliment a defender, but I don't think either of the goals were his fault. I think he'd done fine. I don't think there was one good block he had, but aside from that, I don't think he'd done anything particularly memorable. So, yeah, I thought probably like 6.5 out of 10.
His wee pirouette in the second half is very good. I think
Sorry,
he
he's
did
a 7.5 out of 10. That was class, actually. Not a
uh,
good shout, Liam. I like
I
that. Yeah,
actually,
that was very good.
I actually do think it's possible to compliment centre defenders on having a good game, and you can see the two goals, particularly against Celtic, with the volume of possession that they've had and number of shots. I thought he had a good game again. Thought he was good without being outstanding. I think the signs with him are pretty promising. Actually, he's coming for a lot of criticism at Pateta because he clearly didn't have a good start to the game at all. But I thought he actually recovered from a pretty bad start to the game and did okay. You think about his first sort of 180 minutes of league football, it's been tough for him. It has been tough for him. And I think his confidence after the St Mirren game would have been. I thought, not knowing the guy, I would imagine his confidence would have been quite low coming in that game. So I thought he did okay. But I think the early signs are there's quite a lot of people who are not having him just based off the start he's had, which I think is a wee bit harsh, to be honest. I think you'd like to give a player more than 2 league games before you're casting a judgment on them.
Hey, Dylan Venty's missed a lot of sitters and he's still got our support a year and a half later. So the centre half making a couple of mistakes surely can get away with that. And but you know what I mean though. Like defenders are very much written off a lot. There's still people that think Harry McCarthy will come good. You know, like, and that's their prerogative. You know, like that is their prerogative. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I didn't want to be too harsh on Harry McCarthy because we're trying to avoid calling out individual players. Look, let's forget about that game as a whole. And the number one thing we do need to talk about, and we have touched on it, is the midfield. You know, like that is unfortunately a huge talking point coming out the opening 2 games of the season. A couple of us were fairly comfortable with it going into it, but Harry, you were absolutely not comfortable with the players we had in midfield, and I'm guessing at this point you're starting to feel vindicated.
As I said, I'm not going to do the whole "I told you so" thing. I didn't want to be vindicated, but the worries that I had coming into the season are striking true. I think I get this isn't to bash him, but as I've said with Josh Campbell, I think he goes through phases of being a starting caliber player and then needing time out the team. I think that the last 2 performances he needs a break from the first team. I don't think he's playing at a good enough level to be in the first team at the moment. And the worry for me is McCowan would be a great signing, but again, there's not a midfield like to put him into. Um, the one thing I would say is in terms of a number six, like although we had our thoughts on Diego, um, like Newell had his best time period at the club when he had Jeggo next to him. And then when you look at when we actually done well during the COVID season, even though we weren't the biggest fan of him, well, I was a big fan of him, but I know not everybody was. But Gogic was in the team. And again, it's not players that are technical, but it's players that will fill the positions that they need to fill to kind of give that extra line of security to the defence that we just don't currently have. Like if we brought in McCowan and didn't bring in a six, we'd still be equally as fucked. Like you'd be putting McCowan in for Josh Campbell, but then you'd still have nobody like in front of the defense. Like Newell is good when he's got somebody to do all that dirty work for him, but he had one of his worst performances he's had for Hibs at the weekend because he keeps getting put into this position by managers that he's just not good at. Like we need to have somebody. Liam his tweet about the big bastard. It's the exact profile we need. I don't even want a good footballer. I don't have a name off the top of my head, but like you know who I wish we could bring back? Mark Milligan and actually play him in defensive mid. Like we had to drop him into centre back, and it just wasn't his game. See, if he could have played defensive mid, I would have thought it was absolute gravy.
Oh, yeah.
But Craig, Liam's making faces, but talk to me about Mark Milligan and talk to me about needing a number six.
What a player, Mark Milligan. He's my man. Bring him back. He's probably about 45 now, but I'll take him back. No, I think basically your point's spot on. It's all about balance, isn't it? It's kind of like you can liken it to to your attack as well. A lot of time when you play two strikers, you want one to do the dirty work and one to do the football. And in midfield, if you're going to play a three, you need one to do the dirty work and do the sort of the tackling, and just give the ball to the guys that are good with the ball. So ultimately it's balance, and our team is unbalanced as a whole right now. And I think a massive part of that is the midfield, the core of the team, is sort of unbalanced and is not looking great now. So I think if we can sort that, then it would allow our better players to play. And actually, I can't remember who it was. Somebody earlier made a point about Levitt in the 10, and I actually want to see him there more often because I think that's where a player like him's going to be good technically on the ball. But I think no matter kind of where Levitt gets played, I think he's fighting a losing battle now because if he gets played in the 6, he's definitely not a 6. If he gets played in the 10, he's exposed by not having other players around him that's going to sort of complement his best attributes. So yeah, I think just the balance is off just now. I don't know what you guys think, but that's kind of where I sit on it.
I don't actually hate the Mark Milligan shout. I just wish we'd signed Mark Milligan 5 years earlier than we did because I think his legs were kind of gone, and he is the sort of profile player I would like in terms of that number 6 position. I agree with everything Harry said. I think we need to go and sign 2 midfielders essentially, which is crazy given we've already got 8 centre midfielders on the books. Like, I don't know how you even begin the process of getting rid of. You'd need to get rid of at least 4 or 5 for that group to make it sustainable. And I think that's going to be very, very difficult with the contract situations of some of those players. But my tweet yesterday was just that I've just got this vision in my head of a guy that's going to come in, who's going to snap into tackles, who's built like a bit of a brick shit house, who can cover the ground. As I said, a chain smoker. I don't mind if he spends, most of his weekends on George Street as long as he plays well on a Saturday night. Like Victor Palsson type actually was one that maybe came to mind. Obviously the 30-odd-year-old Victor Palsson, not the 21-year-old that we signed. That's the sort of position I think we need to fill, and I don't think you even need to deploy that guy every single game. I just think in this league, to earn the right to play, sometimes you've got to have someone who's going to be in there prepared to do the dirty work to give it to the guys who can play. Bartley didn't play every single game for Hibs. Like, he came in and out of the team. He was used sparingly. My deal was at the beginning of this window, we signed a guy who could do everything, the 6 that could do all, that could take the ball off centre halves as well as do the bastard work. I think where we're at in the window, I don't think we'll get that player now. I think we now need to just focus on getting a destroyer, a ball winner, and then sign someone else to play you further up, which I think will end up being McCowan. And to be honest, I've got concerns if we're after both Campbell and McCowan. I've got concerns that we might have misprofiled Alan Campbell because I don't think he's the guy that's going to do that 6 role next to McCowan. I haven't really seen an awful lot. I know he did play there a wee bit for Motherwell, but I don't think that's his strongest suit.
Just to jump in before you do, Ewan, sorry. I actually think that with the ilk of both McCowan and Campbell, I think that they're 2 good enough players that you could probably get away with it. I think if you've got a high caliber enough player, I just don't think the current players we've got can function without having someone with defensive responsibility. But I think that McCowan and Campbell, for me, they're 2 players that walk into every team in the league apart from Celtic and Rangers. So for me, they would be good enough to compete in a midfield battle. And I think they are 2 players that will be combative without actually needing to just sit deep the whole time. I don't know if I've just made up a word there, but I just wanted to throw that in. That was my 2 cents.
No, I was actually just about to say similar, Harry. I think that they're both high energy enough, and they are both, hard enough in the tackle that you can probably. But that, again, you can probably play them with Newell if he's going to be deeper. But I don't think you could play them with Levitt, who if he's playing further forward. Like, I still think there's a balance thing there that, like, we almost are at the point now where, God, 2 weeks ago I said I thought the midfield was good enough to compete, and I'm not as gone on the midfield genuinely as probably you guys are. I think that there is still good players in there. I just think the balance is a little bit off. That, and especially coming off a game against Celtic, where Matt O'Reilly's going for 20-odd million this week. Callum McGregor, as Harry describes, arguably the best midfielder in the country, and Rio Hatate's no slouch. You know what I mean? Like, they will make people look very ordinary, but we do need something in there. We do need that different option. Like, God, I said Mariah Welsh would have been the first name on my team sheet just because his energy. That tells you everything. You need a different option in there for these type of games, and we did have a question come in around if we had any ideas for a number 6 type that a player or even just a profile as you've described, Liam. Do you have any players in mind that could fit that profile at all, or whether they fit exactly in the baldiness and the drinking aspect? But what about the football pitch?
I'd like to actually shout a few weeks ago the guy Giovanni Hag, but I think he's a wee bit more than just that. I did a wee look up his stats, and forgive me because this isn't a transfer episode, and people will be that have not tuned in for this kind of content will be rolling their eyes at this. But a guy who I've found who ranks very highly in the metrics that you'd want him to. He's a 23-year-old defensive midfielder who plays for Slask Wrocław in Poland. They're currently in the UEFA conference qualifiers at the moment, but they're 5 games into their season, so he would be fit and he'd be ready to go. Player by the name of Peter Pokorny, 23-year-old holding midfielder. He ranks high across basically every defensive metric. 96% of his actions are defensive actions. He is your classic centre defensive midfielder who absolutely loves a yellow card as well, but never gets sent off. And I think that's the kind of player we need, someone who's going to span that sort of ability to get in about people, but not kind of run the risk of getting
Aye.
sent off. And I think that he just looks like the right profile, right? Kemi, you look at a player and go, he'll be perfect. Looks like a right hard bastard. So get him in.
So Mike did actually just ask us any ideas who that destroyer might be that's a realistic target, and we've also had a comment in to say just how bad must Nohan Kenna be. Well, what I suggest is that you don't go and look at League One stats for last year, because a certain Mr. Kenna ranks quite highly in the stats you'd want for a defensive midfielder. That's just a bit of a strange one, isn't it? But a player that myself and Craig, through very, very limited research earlier, we actually stumbled upon the same player. Someone with Scottish Premiership experience, English Championship experience. Craig, do you want to share the name with the listeners? Because it might get
Absolutely.
a big boo in the YouTube comments.
I know, it probably will, to be fair, but through the sophisticated search engine that is Transfer Market, we came up with Dominic Ball. He's a free agent just now, versatile, defensive midfielder, right back. Obviously has had spells with Aberdeen and Rangers, which will probably be an issue for some, but I've not, can I remember a great deal about him? Not really, if I'm honest. But it was just sort of a decent level option that I seen, and I thought maybe there'd be something to look at there.
He flagged up for me. I thought he's physical. He's a good height. He's an athlete. Like he is the type. He ticks a lot of boxes that we've spoke about, and he also, for me, ticks the box that Liam referenced in our transfer special, picking up someone that's just been let go by Ipswich. So I mean, there we go. Surely that would make us all happy. Harry, have you just commented though in our YouTube chat on your burner account, because Life is Pain has said, "I love Down the Slope," and that is very much appreciated. But
I don't know if that's my burner account, but the name rings a bell. Like Life is Pain after yesterday and after last Sunday. I know. You've got it spot on. We love you too. Life is Pain.
Hibs
Don't
are
you worry.
life is pain.
Fact.
Look, let's say all the talking points have been wide ranging, and the squad has basically been the number one overriding thing, and the issues are, as we've already referenced, players needing to get up to speed, who needs to leave. But let's maybe be a little bit more positive. The rumours around Luke McCowan appear to be strengthening, maybe. As I know you've said he might not resolve all our problems, but is he a player that we should be excited about? He's a player that this marks the third transfer window that I've been asking Hibs to sign him, so I personally would be delighted with it. But Craig, would he tick a lot of boxes for you?
He would actually, and I'm going to. The reason I think he would is I'm going to kind of cite an example from the weekend actually, which I thought I didn't touch on that earlier when you asked about the positives, but was when Bolotnikov dropped into that sort of role just in behind the strikers, and he was picking up brilliant areas. And I was saying to my brother at the game, I was like, he's actually the only one kind of getting space on the ball, and he was picking up brilliant areas. And I think if you put Luke McCowan in that role, he would do just as good, if not better, because obviously that's not, as far as we're aware, Molotnikov's best position. So purely from a point of view of it kind of let us see maybe how he would be deployed in our team if he was in behind the strikers there.
Mhm.
That would be quite a positive. Pinging shots from the edge of the box maybe as well. Don't see enough of that from Hibs at the moment. I don't think we take enough shots in general.
Yeah, that's for sure.
So we put him in, and I think he'd do well there.
Harry's obviously already said he thinks McCowan gets a game for anyone in the country outside of Celtic and Rangers. Liam, is he a player that you think certainly would walk into this team and massively improve us? And would you see him being that high up the pitch in that role that Craig's mentioned there, or would you see him more, maybe a bit deeper?
I think he'll probably get into the team as an 8, to be honest. I think he improves us. I think saying massively improves us probably feels like a bit of a leap because he's a good player. But we saw some really good players come to Hibs last season and they didn't massively improve us. Actually, our results were worse from the point at which we signed Marcondes and Maulida under Montgomery. So I think to say a player's going to massively improve us probably feels like it's a stretch. I think what would massively improve us if we were to sign McCowan and the sort of 6 in the profile that we've mentioned who can play the games. I think that would massively improve us. I still think even if we were to get those 2 players, which feels like it's a really big ask, I still think there's 2 or 3 positions in the starting 11 that could be improved upon wildly. But I think that's where we're at. He's a player I like, to be honest, mate. I think it was a really good shout for you last season. He has actually, I think, won me over the course of last season in terms of the kind of player he is. I do also have to say that I really, really like the boy Lyle Cameron as well, which I know is crazy to say that there's 2 Dundee centre midfielders who I'd probably take, but I think I probably would sign them both. And I think 2 of them would be very close to starting for us. I don't think that's a wild thing to say. I think McCowan certainly would come in and start, and I think Cameron would be far more competitive than the guys that were sitting on the bench or not in the squad at all, who are not getting any look in at the moment. But I think that would be mega money to get both of them.
Aye, and I mean,
Just to
some
throw
people
in there
want
as well.
Silla as well as the
Aye.
number 6, so let's just sign their whole midfield.
He's not who we want, but he would genuinely start for us at the moment for me.
Ah,
Like he's the exact.
nah,
He's not particularly the best at football, but he would do a job.
Do you know, just another, and this is just a total tangent here, and it's just popped into my head. Would Triantes start for us in midfield currently?
Yeah, I was just Googling him now, actually. When we were kind of thinking about targets, I just Googled Triantis because I was thinking like he was really good when he was in that defensive midfield role last year for the time that he was there. Really good in the context of what we
let's
were playing
just
with.
I think really good a wee bit. He was okay.
But the only thing is that I kind of thought with him is he going to do the dirty work as well as we want him to do it? I don't know if he was maybe a bit more of a ball player. But no, I enjoyed him there last year, and I was just trying to look to see if he was playing much for Sunderland or what his situation was. But no, I'd
Are we,
be interested in the prospect of it.
are we another bad defeat next weekend away from the down the slope? Jimmy Jagger wasn't that bad redemption arc.
I'd be fucked.
No, we're not that bad, mate. I don't think we'll. If we're in the championship, maybe. But just a couple of notes on McCowan. I think his set pieces. I don't have anybody at the club at the moment. I'd back maybe Levitt to take a free
Levitt's
kick.
good. Levitt's
Um,
good.
but a penalty. Boyle's inconsistent at best, and he's our penalty taker. McCowan in a lot of what you call it, big situations for Dundee, especially of late, has scored big time penalties. I think that'd be a massive asset. And one last thing when it comes to this midfield role, I just think we lack massively in leadership. Like obviously we don't know what the conversations are on the pitch, but it just normally when you've got an out and out leader on the pitch, you can kind of feel that as a fan. And like for me, I love Newell, but I just as I'd said when he got made captain, I just don't see him as the type of guy that'll overly get the team by the scruff of the neck. And I just don't think we've got many vocal leaders. Like O'Hara for me, like that's the type of player. For example, even in the way he conducts himself in interviews, I could just imagine him like being a leader in the team, but I just don't really get that from the rest of the players. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Do you know, there was this one point yesterday, and it was so the game was basically done. Our captain should be over at the ref complaining like fuck about Mikey Johnson walking on and off that fucking pitch. Honestly, I appreciate if he's got a concussion, he needs to be treated, but he was off the pitch and walked straight back on, sat his arse down for 5 minutes. It just, do you know, like it's like you want that bastard leader, Harry, as well. You
Yeah.
know, like you can be so you can be a leader in other ways, but you do want that. We're fans. You want to see someone fucking screaming and shouting ultimately. You know, like and everyone goes on about you didn't have to scream and shout, but I just felt like it was an opportunity there to just have a good whinge at the ref and be within reason, and it just felt like we accepted it. And maybe it was because the game was so pretty much done, but it did annoy me at the time. But sorry, Liam, I did absolutely interject over you there.
No, it's okay. Just the mention of Jimmy Jeggle got me all riled up, and I had to come in and say something. I think, not to go all Harry and get all high pitched about us not signing players in certain positions, but we've been kind of screaming for the number 6 since long before Jeggle was signed, and we signed Jeggle knowing it was a stopgap. We let him go. Triantis was then the stopgap that followed on for Jeggle. I just wonder how long you can go on just continually, just like we've done at centre half, just ignore what's kind of glaringly obvious and not sign the sort of profile of player that we need. And is it because we've got player on the books who maybe previously fit that profile but no longer, we no longer want to use, we no longer see in favour? I don't know, but I just think it is obvious. Keane said in the comments there about CG Egan Riley. I mean, he's another one, but again, I thought some of CG Egan Riley's best moments were actually what he did with the ball and what he did without the ball. I thought he was really good at picking it up and driving with it, which is maybe that's part of what we need as well in a 6. But I was just thinking about a guy who's more a sort of you're sort of out of possession, kind of pit bull type. I'm saying pit bull because I'm trying to get a dog reference in because of my t-shirt, Ken. An XL bully actually, rather than a
Love
pit bull.
dogs.
An XL bully, that's what I want us to sign. A big fucking angry XL bully.
What
They
about Ryan
can.
Jack?
It's
If
just
he
he's
was, if
such
he could
a
stay fit, if he could stay fit, yes. Like,
He's an arsehole, so he'd fit the role perfectly.
yes, that. Look, I think is look, we are getting hung up on it, but I think most people would want. You don't need. You can still be an effective 6. Dylan McGeoch was an effective 6. He won the ball back. He recycled it. Like no, but you don't need to be. But you still need to
right.
be able to tackle. You still need to be able to move the ball. You still need to be
Mm,
effective. And look, McGeoch obviously then had two. Well, you had John McGinn doing a lot
He
of
was playing a Champions
legs
League
beside
captain.
him, and you know what I mean. Like
uh,
there was a lot, but you can still be effective. Callum McGregor in a Celtic team, a totally different dynamic, but he's not a big, massive presence. But you know, he wins the ball back, he uses his body weight. Like you don't. I don't think we're screaming out necessarily. You don't have to be 6'2" and just smashing people, but you need to be
no,
a specialist, eh? You know what I mean?
I think this is Dylan McGeoch played in this probably a slightly more ball dominant team than we were going to be this season. So if you're going to spend less time with the ball, you need to have players who are better without the ball.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think personally playing that style would work. I think the other thing caveat though is John McGinn did a lot of the combative work that Dylan McGeoch wasn't so interested in getting involved in. I'm not trying to slight him because I think he was a really good player, but he, if we signed him, a prototype of him, I don't think that would really move us forward from where
Right.
we are at the moment.
So you genuinely you feel like we do it is physicality as much as anything else. Then not like just like
Physicality, ability to cover the ground, doing the nasty side of the game, standing over free kicks, pulling their shirt when on the counter attack. The tackle that you put in, doing that yesterday, doing that on a consistent basis when you're staying on the right side of the law, but you're smashing folk. Like you do need that, and you need it against Celtic Rangers. You need it in the derbies, to be honest. To be a competitive team in the derby, you've got to have someone who's willing to go to war in the centre of the park.
Peter Hammond,
And
Jamie
we
Devlin.
we've got guys that they try to do it, but it's not their game. I'm not like so it's not that they're not willing to. It's just it's not their game, and I think that's where we need we need that bastard in there.
Aye. Hi, let's move on slightly to a different angle of it, unless you've got anything else to add in on the
I
number
was
6
I was
point of
just
view.
going to throw out like aimless recruitment has led to us desperately needing this player. If you consistently bring in good midfielders, you don't need it as desperately. But as we've touched on, like we've brought in a bunch of midfielders that don't work together. Like that midfield that you talked about, like you had a team that was willing to go out and press as a unit, like with McGinn, McGee, Callan. Like you had three players that could all do at least a little bit of each aspect of the game, whereas we've got players that are good at certain things and not good at others. So you need that like polarizing player that can just focus on the one thing, so those other players can be free to do what they need to do. So that's why I think, like, if we'd recruited well enough after we'd finished third and built off of that, I don't think the desperate need for a six would be there like we have it now and like we've needed it for the last year and a half, because recruitment for the last 4 to 5 years has been that bad.
Yeah,
So I
so I
just
mean,
wanted to throw that in there.
no, but you're right, and like if you want to highlight the recruitment, it does bring us on to the next main talking point. It was players moving on, and like I mean, if you want to look at it, just a little quick history of that position though. So Alex Gogic was he was a number six, and then Alex Gogic has left, and then the players we've seen in that position since Jake Doyle Hayes came in that summer, Egan Riley's tried it, Triantes has tried it, Diego's tried it. You know, like currently Newell's trying it, and a different guys. Like we've not actually really had anyone to just actually even like the players that have seemed more accustomed to it have been on short term deals or loan deals. Just no funds have been allocated to that position. It doesn't feel like, maybe other than Jake Doyle Hayes, like we paid a fee for him obviously that summer, but again, is he a number six? Was the purpose of him to be a number six? We don't know, but is he one of the players that need to move on for you, Craig? And Noah Kenna, another number six that just isn't getting a sniff. Would they be near the top of your list in terms of midfield and the rest of the squad?
Of course they would. I think it would Kean put in the chats how bad must Noah and Kenna be, and it's almost at the point now with the sixes where I'm like, well, let's just give him a go and see what it's like. But that's a very stretch too far. But no, I think you have to. If these guys aren't going to play, then obviously there's no value in keeping them. But at the same time, they're difficult to shift because they're on big wages, and if we don't want them, there's no many teams around our sort of wage bracket or ability to pay that are going to want to take them. And these guys probably don't want to move away and get a lower wage somewhere else just to play games when they'd be quite happy sitting on 3 or 4 grand a week or whatever they're getting. And to be fair, I don't blame them. That's more on the side of the club for giving them these massive contracts. But no, Jake Doherty's, I really like him actually. I think he's a really decent player, but we just don't see anything of him. So,
Literally the forgotten man,
ah,
unfortunately. Harry, the other positions, players that need to move on, maybe even before we can strengthen. I mean, look, for
Just
me,
1 second, I think you desperately need to read out the last YouTube comment, and I'm sorry to call someone out, but that's mental. James Kinnebra said, "How about Rocky in the middle of the park?" How about absolutely fucking not?
give it a go.
No, I like Rocky, and yeah, we tried Effie Ambrose in the middle
and
of
we
the
like
park, and
all
it
our
didn't go down
listeners or
very well.
viewers, as the case is
And
at YouTube as well.
yeah, sorry, yeah, James, appreciate you commenting, but let's not peddle that agenda. We've tried centre backs in there before, and it's not went down a treat at all. Yeah, I don't think Rocky would be very well suited to the middle of the park personally.
Folk are worried about his passing ability at centre back. Never mind in further up the pitch. Anyway,
Sorry, Ian, you're asking about other players.
just
Matty,
players need to move on. Aye.
being honest, I don't really care. I care about people moving in. I think that there is a lot of dead weight at the team. I think we've got 19 players or something ridiculous like that out of contract, and I think that most of
Yeah.
them, almost all of them, I'd be more than happy to see
I
leave.
mean, you've made that
Um,
up, but
I swear to God,
Aye,
someone
made that
tweeted
up.
something like that. I might have made it up. I swear I
I
read the
think
number
it's
somewhere.
10, and I think it's
Is it
10
10?
plus the
Well,
loans.
maybe I
But
included youngsters as well. Up you. But anyway, we've got a lot of players that are hopefully in the last year of their contract because they shouldn't be at the club anymore. And yeah, I don't like what I just name drop a lot of different people because I think the people that need to move on, we've already said. I don't want to just keep throwing them under the bus again. I think there's probably a good 6 or 7 that we probably would have wanted out at the start of the summer. And it is just a shame that they're going to sit on the wage bill for the rest of the season. But is what it is. If they're getting paid and we can't move them, then just gonna have to get on with it.
Liam, is there any players that maybe we wouldn't have mentioned before, or maybe more first team players, if you like, that you would think the club or even you personally wouldn't be against us moving on? Look, it seems like when he's fit, Ellie Yuan will be away, which is a shame. There's a little bit of me that hopes he's unfit until the 1st of September. Is there anyone that even played at the weekend that you would maybe move on?
Um, I mean, I think there's all the sort of usual suspects that we've talked about ad nauseum. You know, your Harbottles, your Kenners, Jair, McCurdy, Del Ferrier, Amos. I would be open, to be honest, to moving on, potentially Rocky, depending on whether or not there was interest. I think it's pretty clear he's not fancied. Um, I'd be open to offers for someone like Lewis Miller as well. I think there's I don't think there's really anyone other than probably a handful of players that I wouldn't be interested in listening to offers for. I think the obvious one, and it feels harsh after 2 games this season, but we've seen enough of it last season. I think you'd have to say that based on what he's supposedly earning, I think moving Martin Boyle off the wage bill would potentially be a good move at this point in time. I say potentially, and it's early days, but you'd have to admit, I mean, his 2 performances in the league this season have been really, really poor on the back of a really poor season.
Especially in the way that we're trying to utilise him. You know, he
Aye.
should be that out ball, and I just felt at times yesterday he left Lewis Miller out to dry a little bit, just not showing in the places he should. And I mean, you raised your concerns, I think, in the middle of last season, and when he's coming back from injury and with his age and stuff. Ultimately, these things will take their toll on players, and that this is a more natural thing. And maybe he just isn't that football player anymore. But if he
Maybe
isn't,
not.
we can't still try to utilize him in that way. You know what I mean? Like, we need to try and find whether it's an impact sub in that position, or if it's trying him down the middle off the shoulder or whatever, where maybe he's still got 10 yards of pace or whatever. But
Yeah.
it certainly feels like on the small sample size of this season, he's not going to travel 80 yards up the pitch. You know what I mean? Like, he's not going to be able to break from our box to their box, and we've seen him score goals doing that. Never mind just getting us up the pitch. So it is a worry, and it's unfortunate. It's a shame because he's a player that has brought a lot of Hibs fans a whole lot of joy. Harry has just put in our own personal comments that it's 16 players. However, I'm pretty sure on transfer market they still got players like Joe Newell being out of contract the last time I checked. I don't think
Aye, someone quoted 15 at the game yesterday as well, but I'm pretty sure when I looked and interrogated it, I think it was more like 11 or 12. Plus obviously the expiring loans. I'm sorry, but I'm not buying into this narrative. I believe, I didn't see it, but I believe that Malky Mackay said on Sky Sports that essentially we just need to wait another year. Which I don't think any football club in the right mind tells the supporters that it's fine, we'll be better in a year, after telling us that things are going to be fine for the last 3 years. For me, it's less trust the process and more trust the lack of progress that we've seen over the last year or so. And I just I'm really struggling, to be honest. But I thought David Gray's interview yesterday was really good, where he said short term pain for some long term gain. I actually could buy into that, because short term to me means it's going to be like this for a few games and it's going to get better. Short term is no 12 months. Do you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I think that's something that fans can stomach short term, but we can't stomach a season of being down, dwindling in the bottom half and just accepting that, because if that's what you're seriously telling fans, people are not going to show up.
No, absolutely. So that's a perfect transition. David Gray did say short-term gain. No, absolutely not short-term gain. Fucking hell. Short-term pain. It was a long day today. Short-term pain for long-term gain. Look, I tweeted it myself today. For me, that's an admission from the manager that he feels that the squad wasn't ready for the start of the season. Which is what we spoke about last week, and either side of our recording last week, Hibs signed a player on the Saturday and then signed 2 or 3 players within 48 hours after our recording. I don't necessarily think that changes anything that we said last week. And will any of these players be available for next weekend? If Howie lets out till September, it would seem not. Who knew signing an older player that's coming off an injury was a bad idea? Nicky Cadden's not had a pre-season, so I can't imagine he'll, a week down the line, be available to go in and contribute much at Celtic Park. Kukarevich looked unfit, and Bowie, obviously Bowie only played 20 minutes. So we are still going to go into this weekend underprepared, Harry. What do you need to see from David Gray, to start to see that long-term gain start to show lights, potentially? Something to hold on to. What would that be?
Sorry, it's a non-answer, but I'm not looking for anything from David Gray. As I said before the Celtic game at the weekend, I just wanted to get through these 2 games without getting absolutely battered in either of them. I think realistically, if Furuhashi could have finished, I think we probably could have been on the end of a hiding. He had an off game, thankfully, so we got away with 2-0, which I was fine with. And going into the game at the weekend, if we don't get scudded 5-6-0, it's obviously a bad result, but it could always be worse. And I'll start judging them from I think it's fair to start judging them from the Dundee game. I think St Mirren he got wrong for me, and I think that the game management and throughout the game was poor as well. But against Celtic, I think a guy, as we've said, a squad's not really been put together very well for him. Half of them that I'm expecting to be starters in the near future don't have fitness. So yeah, I'm not going to judge him based off a League Cup game at Celtic Park. So
But is there anything that you could, learnings like we said? I know it's like we said last year with like Nick Montgomery when he went to Ibrox and we were wide open, and then literally was it a week later against Celtic we totally changed our approach and we shithoused our way to a draw. Like, is there anything that you could see that would give? Because the reason I come to you with this is you were probably the least confident with his appointment out of the four of us. So like, is there anything for you that you could see this weekend that would just start to build that for you?
if we can find a way to get a tune out of these players and make them look like they can compete with the likes of Celtic, I'd be very impressed. But I hate to write the team off before they've got on the park, but I just don't see us doing anything. I very seldom go into a game not expecting a result or not having my fake optimism. But going into the game, I just Celtic are very far ahead of us. They look very well prepared for a manager that's now in his second year in charge after being at them for a few years previously. I think we're coming up against literally the worst possible draw we could have came against. And sorry if it's a cop out of an answer, but for me, if David Gray can pull off the impossible, I'll be very, very impressed. But I just don't expect it, and that's literally it's not an expectation for me. I'm not going to judge him. If we get beat 6 or 7-0, I'll be like, we need to set up better defensively. But if we go in and get beat 3-1, 3-0, I'm just, water off a
Mhm.
duck's back for me.
Well,
It's Dundee's the next big focus.
Jay and Sandy disagree with you, Harry, and he says we'll be a lot happier come Christmas time. There'll be more signings to come, and he even thinks we're going to beat Celtic on Sunday. So maybe we should all be. I wonder if it's more like Jay or more like Sandy, or if they're sitting down and watching together. Liam, Craig, whoever would like to come in first, maybe just before you say, Mike agreed with you around about Martin Boyle's performance yesterday. Cam Grady says he feels like the club might be potentially holding funds back after the sort of promises of funds, and then the three transfers that have come in this summer. But we have paid fees for Bowie now, and if Luke McCowan comes in, it'll be a fee as well. But they're just saying maybe holding back funds for next year when all the the wage bill will be significantly lower just from out of contract players. But Liam or Craig, whoever feels desperate to come in first, is there anything just for you that you could see that would give you that little bit more confidence in the manager?
Not really. Not this weekend anyway. I
Mm.
think, to be honest, this weekend I would just get players that need minutes. I think there's some value in that. At the end of the day, it is another game of football, regardless who you're against. So there's some value in the game in the sense of players that need a few minutes, get them in, get them in the park, try not to get pumped and move on. That's it.
Well,
I know that's so negative, and people always saw we shouldn't be aiming for mediocrity against Celtic. We should be going to have a go. But where we are right now, I think just get out without a hiding, to be honest, is where I'm kind of with that.
Liam, same question.
Aye.
You any positivity, or are we like not even necessarily positivity, just like what could inspire some hope?
I think just be a bit more resolute as a start would be a good start. I think just I mean I don't I think if we were to go there and hold them and frustrate them a wee bit again, I go back to the game where we got the penalty against them. Was that last season in the 2-1 game? We went down to 10 men. We didn't get the
Uh,
penalty against them. Sorry,
No, Easter Road.
the shit pool in the box. No, at Celtic Park. I think it was last season, or 2 seasons ago, maybe.
Maybe
Two
it was
seasons ago
Josh
under Lee
Campbell that scored the
Johnson.
penalty.
Yes,
oh
that
yeah,
game.
and then Ellie
Aye.
Yuan got sent off. Aye.
We
Yeah.
did show a wee bit. I did that send off so nonsense. You just reminded me about that. I think that sort of performance, we go and just put a wee bit more pressure on them. I think it's going to be very, very difficult for us. I agree with Craig. Get some minutes into the guys that need them. I don't use the term free hit. You all know that. I don't think there's such a thing, but Because I do think you get judged on it, regardless of whether people say you get judged on it or not. I mean, Harry's saying he's not really going to pass any judgment based on the performance, but
He will.
the fact of the matter is he will, and as will 99.9% of Hibs fans, though, will have some form of judgment over what happens at the weekend. I just think we have to be, yeah, we have to show some form of improvement, and I think we have to give some of the new guys an opportunity to get ready. I mean, if Nicky Cadden is available, to be honest, I would throw him in and just go with it. I think Jordan Obita's performances probably deserve a drop in all honesty. So if we go to a 3-5-2, I would expect him to miss out. But it's very difficult to get excited about it, isn't it?
Unfortunately, it is. It is. But you know what? Maybe let's just do some predictions. And I mean, we did have the audacity on Sunday morning to all boldly predict either wins or draws, which hasn't went down well universally. But perhaps we will not all boldly predict wins this weekend. Harry, you have said you want to keep the scoreline down, but now you're going to contradict yourself and tell me Hibs are going to win 1-0, right?
Mate, that'd be daft. We're shithousing this on penalties. 1-1, and it's going to be 0-0 into extra time. They're going to score in the 102nd minute. We're going to score in the 121st. And then David Gray's going to be a player coach, and he's going to score the winning penalty, and we're going to get through. Because that's the type of miracle we will need to win on Sunday.
Kenny's going
Yeah.
to be raging. That boy that left us a comment, that Jason D cunt that left us a comment saying you're all delusional for predicting we'd get us on Celtic Park. He is absolutely raging at Harry's comment right now. Like, I don't think he understands the premise of a Hibs podcast. That obviously we're all going to sit here and predict Celtic are going to win the game. Like, it's the most ridiculous reply I've ever seen. Like, we're obviously all going to say we're going to get a result. Like, what the fuck would be the point in doing this otherwise? Like,
Well, look, we're over to look. This will be titled episode 226, I think, but we're actually probably a little bit between various episodes that haven't had episode numbers on them in the time. We're fast approaching 250 episodes. It's our it's our fourth birthday on Wednesday, and as it stands, I think that if you took the average prediction, Hibs haven't lost a game in 4 years for what we say. So it's just not the way we do things. Harry's just boldly predicted the Hibs win on penalties. Craig, what would be your lovely hypothetical situation for
I'm
Sunday?
absolutely predicting a win. Like I was before Harry, I wanted to be the first one to say it, but of course I'm going to say that we're going to win the game. Like I said to each at the weekend, fully believing that we would get pumped. And do you know what? I was only 2 goals off, so not too bad.
Exactly, mate. Exactly.
No, I'm saying 2-1 Hibs. Absolutely.
Right, Liam, which one of these new signings scoring the winner in extra time?
I think Kieran Bowie showed enough. I think Kieran Bowie will get himself into a similar situation, but this time it'll come in off the underside of the crossbar.
Superb. That'll do for me. I'm going to stay nice and grounded and say we're going. Right, fuck. Hibs are going to win the game, and we're going to go on and win the League Cup. And do you know why? Because it's the first year I've not fucking predicted it. Because we were too late with our predictions and we'd already been drawn away to Celtic Park. That'll do for us. I hope we've not been too negative for everyone. We have tried our best to try and be as upbeat as possible. But turns out I was wrong. The midfield maybe isn't good enough to get us third place, and Harry was right. And that is the note we're leaving you on.
We've got one fun.
No, it's
We've got
not.
one fun thing we can throw in there though, just to liven it up though.
So it's not going to
Aki sent in a question a couple of weeks in a row. If you're on, rattle that one off.
Oh yeah, apologies, Aki. It is our favourite album, and Aki, you are a listener of this show, and you should know better. We have had this before, and we struggled.
I was fine.
What's your favourite album, Harry? I'm going to have to quickly.
Ewan's is like now 46 or something. Every time this question
I'm
comes
just
up,
going to
Ewan
tell
goes,
you.
I didn't listen to albums, but
I
I like
can't.
the
I'm going to.
singles.
I'm going to tell you what I'm listening
Ewan's
to.
favourite's the one where Spice
No, no.
Girls that had
No,
like
no,
4 songs and now
It's my
46.
favourite album currently, but I don't even know what it's called. Luke Combs' new album. What's that called? I've been listening to that pretty much on repeat. That's
Luke
my
Combs' new album will do, mate. People can find it.
that's my go-to now. Harry, what's yours?
I like Forest Hill Drive by J. Cole. That's always my go-to.
Craig's investigating his. Liam, you got yours at the top of your head?
I give it the same answer. Nah, I don't know if I do give the same answer, but Illmatic by Nas, probably my favourite album of all time.
And Craig, this will be the first time for you, my friend.
Not a massive album guy, to be honest. I was just listening to Liam.
He's another
actually
now. That's what I call
blame
Now
music.
that's
Man.
Circle Music 91.
Blame Ewan for it, and I'm like, oh, I'm in for it here, like. But so I something by Arctic Monkeys. That's probably my favourite, to be fair. The
I didn't have you down as
2013
an
one I've
Arctic
just
Monkeys
found on
guy.
Spotify. So
Never had you down as an Arctic Monkeys guy,
I love
Craig.
it. Arctic
I'm
Monkeys.
surprised.
Me and Mikey are Mikey in
Oh, yes.
particular, Red Hot Chili Peppers. So
I was going to say I was expecting Red Hot Chili Peppers to come up. I was surprised at the.
one of their newer ones is decent as well that I liked. But no, I'll go Arctic Monkeys.
Need to find out what Aki's favourite album is. I love this question because I can't remember who asked us this question before, but I don't think he asks questions of the podcast anymore. But he clearly knew a lot more about music than we did, and he'd ask the question every week, I think just to show up how little we knew about music. So fair play to the boy.
Well, see
Harry
if
knows a
we're
bit.
revisited. Well, I just sounded us off 5 minutes ago, but why not keep going? I've got time. I can smell my dinner ready, but why not? Let's revisit some old concepts. Anyone been to the shops recently? Got a good meal deal?
Oh Jesus!
Yeah. No, look,
No.
boys, that'll do us for this week. We will be back next week, hopefully reviewing a fantastic Hibs win for the ages. Ultimately, if we can go through to Celtic Park and win in the League Cup, why the fuck can we not? Cheers.